people. I've got 150 countries that want to make deals. You know, you have a lot of countries.
The market was really happy with the China situation and the sit-down.
They were.
With the Treasury Secretary.
If I didn't do that deal with China, I think China would have broken apart.
Not us, them.
We weren't going to break. We're not going to break. They would have broken apart. You know, our country has a lot of spirit. And you know why? Because of November 5th.
So Trump gave an interview with Fox News when he was in Middle East, and he talked about China a lot. Now, we'll get to the full interview in a second, but for now, let's focus on China, because he's talking about a reporting we did almost 3 weeks ago that China was having issues, and now he's openly saying like China was having issues. So we reported this 3 weeks before it's hitting the mainstream media.
People, I've got 150 countries that want to make deals. You know, you have a lot of countries.
The market was really happy with the China situation and the sit-down.
They were.
With the Treasury Secretary.
If I didn't do that deal with China, I think China would have broken apart.
Not us, them.
We weren't going to break. We're not going to break. They would have broken apart. You know, our country has a lot of spirit. And you know why? Because of November 5th.
Okay, we'll watch the whole thing, but this is what he was really talking about. The issues in China are really growing. We covered how like the factories were burning down. We covered how where a lot of workers were protesting because they weren't getting paid for the work they have done. Now, why was that happening? That's because the way the factories work, or not just in China, everywhere. Let's say you're someone who put in an order with the factory, so you put in $1 million order. You don't pay the $1 million upfront. You say, hey, here's a deposit. Deposit could be anything, right? It varies factory by factory. $50,000, $100,000. You put down a deposit, then factory takes out a loan or uses their own money to buy all the materials they need to produce whatever you order. Let's say t-shirts, whatever. This is just an example, right? So these factories, they have margins like 10, 15%. That means a lot of the money they have to put up front, and then when that item gets shipped or when that item arrives in America, that's when they get the rest of the $1 million order that's when they get the money for the $1 million order. That means a lot of these factories had put in a lot of money in producing the orders that got canceled overnight because of the tariff war. And because of that, they either were drowned in loans, so they couldn't afford to pay back the loans, or they just didn't have the money to pay the workers. So even though the factories produced all the goods, the workers did all the work, the workers weren't getting paid, and the factories were going bankrupt. And these protests were really rising in China. Volume's a little low. This clip was just a little low. It's on Twitter, that's why. Hopefully my volume's not low. Hopefully. Because I fixed it overnight, so hopefully that's good. But let's watch this reporting we did a little bit earlier. Now, this is separate from the factory stuff, too.
Countries love telling stories about their founding. Some started with empires, others with a revolution, and a few with peace treaties that no one really cares about.
Wait, would you guys prefer to watch this reporting, or should we watch the full interview that Trump just did? Just let me know in the chat. We'll watch based on that.
Stories shape how nations see themselves and how they want to be seen. But if you look closely, almost every country has a gap between what it teaches and what really happened. History isn't about what happened. It's about what gets remembered. And memory, when controlled, becomes power. And this man knows it better than anyone else. Ask it to...
This was such a great line, which I didn't write this, someone else. But history is not what's happening. History is what's remembered, and I think that's the line from Mao. Mao Zedong was very good at propaganda. To win in a civil war, you need like a propaganda pamphlet in one hand and rifle in the other. So basically, Mao knew it's like the power of truth is like almost as good as the power of like violence when it comes to. All right, I think a lot more people are saying we'll watch the full interview. We'll get to this a little bit. So the interview just came out. This is on the White House page. Yeah.
Mr. President, thanks for the time.
Thank you very much.
First of all, congrats on becoming a grandfather for the 11th time.
Most importantly,
Tiffany, baby
right.
Alexander.
They're a really good couple, great couple, I think, and the baby is perfect. I'll let you know about it in 21 years, but the baby is good, so we're happy about that. I look forward to seeing the baby.
Seeing you with those grandkids. This is a big trip. This is seen, especially in this region, as a major, major success with the interaction between each one of these countries. How do you see it today as you wrap it up?
Well, I always considered it to be a very important region. I know all three leaders, as you could see, very well. In all three cases, I knew them long before I ran for politics, which is sort of something. It makes it a little bit more special. They're great people. The three of them, they're great people. And it's a great region, but it was never treated properly, and it was certainly not treated well by Biden, who didn't know he was alive, frankly, so, you know, you can understand that. But he was not, they didn't treat.
Crazy part is some very sad clip came out about Biden today. Like, I don't think, yeah, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it was like, he was having, like, forgetful issues, or, you know how at old age you start forgetting stuff? He was having that in 2023.
This group well, and I think they were being, and I guess you know because you've reported on it, they were being coaxed very strongly by China because that solves China's fuel problem forever. And it wasn't their preference, but they were on their way. They were going to China, and that was going to be their parent. And that's not happening anymore.
Do you think you've shifted the paradigm on that?
No, I don't think. I know. We are as close. We're closer now to them than ever before. You could see the relationship. You could get a body expert and pay them a lot of money, and they could tell you. No, there's just a relationship that I have with all three that's just, you know, very extraordinary. I was even saying, you know, I mean.
No, the other part is also China is like getting very close to a lot of Middle Eastern countries, especially what is it? UAE. They're trying to build a military base there, and we just signed a big AI deal with UAE. So that definitely helps bring those countries like closer to the United States than China. Now, China has been trying to work with Saudi Arabia for a long time. We always see rumors every few months that Saudi is going to ditch the dollar, start trading in other currencies. But that doesn't really happen. We see these rumors because people just like stirring up stuff, but it's like Saudi has never commented anything about not using the dollar.
We're like so friendly. Not a normal situation where you're okay with a leader or whatever, but this is a very important region. This is the energy capital of the world. They have, you know, massive amounts of energy and other things. They've invested wisely, and they're looking to do other things. I guess in Saudi Arabia they said in another couple of years there'll be more than 50% other businesses represent more than 50% of the take. And it's pretty amazing what all of them have done.
You have a massive amount.
Saudi Arabia is trying to basically do what Dubai has done, where it's like you use the oil money to become something bigger than oil. But let's see, because Saudi Arabia has like a lot more oil money. So they're a lot more dependent on oil revenue. So it's harder to get off something.
Amount of business investment coming back to the U.S.
Right.
And they're still adding it up
Which,
in
by
each
the way,
country.
most importantly, that's why I came here. I didn't come here to say, gee, you guys are rich and you have a lot of oil. You know, they have a lot of money, and I want them to spend the money in the United States. And we set records. There's never been a trip like this by any president or anybody ever before. And I'd ask him, how about doubling it?
I mean, so a lot of people in the chat are talking about the Moody downgrade. Definitely, this is where it's like, you have to keep in mind, because people overblow things a lot. Because when the what is it called? The bond yield was going down like 4 weeks back, everyone was saying, oh, no one's buying US debt, and that's why it's going down. When that's just not true. We were covering it, and we were saying this was likely like some hedge fund or some financial institution that needed cash quickly because the stock market crashed, and that's why they were selling the bonds, and that's why the yield was going up, not down. My bad, I misspoke. So whenever someone sells the bonds, the yield goes up. So that's basically what was happening. But everyone was like, oh, then no, because China is selling the bonds or because the world is selling the bonds. But in reality, all these people making this argument, if they just looked at like the whole situation, right after Trump announced Liberation Day, I think just 2-3 days after that, we had like a new bond offering, and it was oversubscribed. That means there was more demand from the world to buy the US bonds than there was supply. So in reality, the bond yield wasn't going up because the world didn't want it. The world didn't want US debt. It was going up because someone was over leveraged, some hedge fund, and they needed quick cash for the margin call or something like that. So they were forced to sell, which just happens. They took on too much risk. When the stock market crashes, their brokerage is like, hey, we need more cash. So they sell bonds to get and get their hands on cash. That's what was happening. Everyone was like, no one wants the bonds. That's just not true. Now, we'll see how this downgrade plays out because it is first time it's happening. But it could be just someone overblowing stuff. Let's see how the market reacts, not how credit ratings are reacting.
Up. Okay. Oh, I should have asked for more because they said, okay. They're good people and they love our country. And look, they have great danger because of Iran. That's their primary danger. And that makes them vulnerable. But I don't see them as being vulnerable because I think we have the greatest military in the world. And we're adding to it now at levels that nobody's ever seen. We're going to build the Iron Dome. We deserve an Iron Dome. You know, see, we call it two names. So I was going to call it the Iron Dome because that's the name everyone has heard of for years. But to me, it was.
Yeah, and McNellan, we were saying this like right when it's happened. It's like everyone's just guessing, and we were like, most likely take it because if no one wanted the bond, no one would be buying our new bonds. You know, so it wasn't the case that no one wanted U.S. bonds. It was probably someone who just had too much debt and needed cash.
It was old-fashioned, so we changed it recently to the Golden Dome, the beautiful Golden Dome, and.
Matches
Ronald
the golden
Reagan,
age.
you know, Ronald Reagan wanted that many years ago, and he was right, except you didn't have anywhere near the technology.
I want to talk about Israel. I mean, the first trip in the first administration when you came.
Yeah, the Ukraine stuff is going crazy too. Hopefully more people realize that it's really Russia who doesn't want peace, because even Trump, who was trying to really deal with Russia, like he took a completely opposite approach from the Biden administration, where they were like, Russia is not going to negotiate peace. The only thing Russia understands is strength. Trump tried negotiating with them, and Russia just wasn't budging. Even J.D. Vance, who you could argue J.D. Vance is probably like one of the most isolationist official in like the last few decades we have had, or last few years, right? And even he said, like, we're not going to get involved in Ukraine before, like, during the election season. And then after he learned about how Russia is negotiating, Russia is basically asking United States to give Russia more territory than what they currently control. They're like, hey, all this territory that Ukraine has won back, we want it back. And that's the only way we want ceasefire. Like, their military is not strong enough to take on that territory, and they want the U.S. to help them out.
Came over to the Middle East. You did do a stop in Israel on the way back. Not doing it this time. Obviously, the Israel-Hamas and what's happening in Gaza is driving a lot. How do you see that? Are you frustrated?
I mean, but then again, why would Zelensky budge? It's his country. It's like no one's going to give up territory. This is what doesn't make sense, Boom. It's like Zelensky is like defending himself, defending his country. It's like Russia. The whole Russian argument is like, oh, these people spoke Russian, but they don't want to be part of Russian. They just speak Russian. Like, we have territories and we have areas that speak Spanish. That doesn't mean they want to be part of Mexico or Spain.
Did it all with Prime Minister Netanyahu?
No, look, he's got a tough situation. You have to remember there was an October 7th that everyone forgets. It was one of the most violent days.
Yeah, exactly what Nomad said. Like, Russia has been doing this every few years. They first invaded Georgia in 2008, then Moldova, they took some territory using like those little green men, then Crimea in 2014, and then Ukraine. They just want a ceasefire and come back later.
The history of the world, not the Middle East, the world. When you look at the tapes, and the tapes are there for everyone to see. So he has that problem. That problem should have never happened. Now, if I were president, that problem wouldn't have happened because Iran had no...
But then again, Boom, we can't take Russia's word for it, right? Russia is saying that Ukraine agreed to a ceasefire and just backed out, but that didn't happen. Russia is just making it up just so like they can have like the higher ground. But in reality, if you look at the history, on February 20th, so 2 days before the invasion started, Russian foreign minister went on international television and he said Russian troops are just practicing, like doing an exercise on the Ukrainian border. They have no intention of invading. 2 days before. Then on February 22nd, 2022, Putin goes on his television and he said that he's launching a special military operation. So clearly, Russia does not have a habit of telling the world truth.
money. They were stone cold broke, and they weren't giving money to Hamas. In fact, I remember in your show, like a year before that, you were saying there's no money for Hezbollah, Hamas. There's like 28 different groups. The Houthis. But they have 28 groups that we know of, and none of them, they were all breaking up because there was no money. And then Biden came along, he took off all the sanctions on Iran. I mean, I put sanctions that were so strong. Anybody that did business with Iran could not do business with the United States. So everybody took a pass.
Oh, by the way, we're just like 30 likes away from 500. So if you haven't hit the like button, be sure to do so. And we have a subscribe counter right above my head. We're trying to get to 2 mil. So if you can hit that subscribe button, help us out in our goal, greatly appreciate it.
Yes, including China. Biden came in, he just let everyone go by, and they became, you know, they have over $300 billion today.
So how do you get to a solution there?
Oh, we'll get 100%.
You think so?
Well, we're going to have a solution one way or the other. It's either going to be violent or not violent. And I
see the chances of the violent solution is a lot lower now because if you guys are following the channel or even news in general, you know, we moved like 6-7 B-2s near Iran. We put it in at the Diego Garcia base in the Indian Ocean. Well, all those B-2s are back in the United States. They're back in Missouri. And yeah, so if we want to do the violent solution again, we could track it. We could see if they're traveling. So we would know if the negotiations are not going well. Right now, I think this seems more like if you don't negotiate in good faith, we have that option always.
far prefer nonviolent. I know so many Iranians from New York, from Washington, from different places. These are great.
X8, we don't stream a lot. That's why we don't have a lot of people watching. So with YouTube, the way it works is like, if you stream regularly, you'll get more people watching. It really doesn't depend on the subscribers at all.
People, you know, you have to view them as people. And I don't want it to be a violent thing, but they're not going to have a nuclear weapon.
But you said it was close the other day. You said it was close to a deal.
I think it's close. I think,
so does that mean that they're going to
make
enrich at any level, like a civilian level?
No, I think they want to make a deal. You know, you say to yourself, they have massive oil, by the way. They have oil that lasts for 300 years. They have a lot of oil. People don't realize they're one of the biggest in the world. And it's very good oil, meaning it's pure.
By the way, right now, 90% of Iranian oil goes just to China. And we have a secondary sanction on Iran. Basically, any country who buys Iranian oil is going to get hit with 25% tariff. But I think that's on pause just because we're negotiating with them. But if negotiations do fall apart, that's definitely not a good news for China because 90% of Iranian oil goes to China. They're going to get hit with another 25%.
Pure, perfect stuff. They don't have to, you know, spend a fortune on gases and energy in order to melt.
Yeah, Justin. We were talking about this last stream, but the new jet that Trump is getting, definitely, like, optics don't look good. Even many Republicans are speaking up that maybe we shouldn't take it.
The rock and everything. They have pure, unadulterated, good oil. And you say, why does somebody that has that kind of oil, other than being politically correct, but when you have unlimited amounts of oil and gas, why are you putting up, you know, why do you need civil nuclear? I just don't see it.
But, I mean, are you going to call for it all?
And I think nuclear is fine. I think nuclear is fine for civil if you have a country with no oil. But if you're sitting on one of the largest piles of oil in the world, why are you talking about putting up nuclear civil? I call it nuclear civil.
And so Bibi Netanyahu is not convinced that a deal would be good for the region. Is that fair to say?
I think I can say that Bibi, he's an angry man, and he should be because of October 7th. And he's been hurt badly by that, but in another way he's been sort of helped because I think he's fought hard and bravely.
And you think the Israel-Hamas, the situation in Gaza is going to come to an end soon?
Gaza's a nasty place. It's been that way for years. I think it should become a free zone. You know, freedom. I call it a freedom zone. It should become a freedom zone. It doesn't work. Every 10 years they go back. They have Hamas. They have everybody's being killed all over the place. I mean, you ever see? You talk about crime stats. It's a nasty place.
Are these people, these countries that you were just visiting, are they going to have to be a part of the solution?
Well, they would be. They would be. I spoke to all three of them. They would absolutely be. I mean, they're really rich and really, 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 even more than rich. They're good people. And they would help. And so money's not even the problem.
Well, you got to get countries to say yes, to take them.
Look. These are people that want to be in the Middle East. They really want to be in the Middle East. They love the Middle East. I see that. There's a spirit for the Middle East. They didn't have to go to...
I mean, this may be like a very, very dumb take, so I want to put that PSA even before I say anything. But is that not how we solved like the gang crisis here in the United States? Like a lot of like minority kids didn't have any options but to join the gangs. So one of the way we attacked the gang crisis was like, let's have these kids get educated. Let's have them have more economic opportunity. And that's one way they're not going to choose the gang path. Because that's what happened in El Salvador too, right? A lot of the people just, like, if you're a kid whose family is struggling, not, when I say kid, like a teenager, and the only way you can make some money is by doing like the gang stuff, a lot of people, you can understand why people would do it, right? So it's like, that's why they turn to that. So if you provide them with better economic opportunities, it's like, there's a higher chance that then they're gonna pick something that's safer for them and can help out their family than pick something that's like dangerous.
Sweden,
Video games stopped all the gang banging. I don't know.
Germany, these different countries, they could have been home in the Middle East if somebody had the brains to build beautiful communities. You know, 1.9 million is a lot of people, but it's not a lot of people, relatively.
You know, you had a couple of foreign policy successes even right before this trip. You picked up the phone and called 2 nuclear powers, India and Pakistan, and you got them to step back from the brink. That was a success as you got on the plane heading over here.
A bigger success than I'll ever be given credit for. Those are major nuclear powers. Those are not like a little bit. And they were angry. And the next phase was probably, did you see where it was tit for tat. And it was getting deeper and more, I mean, more missiles. Everyone was stronger, to a point where the next one's going to be, you know what, the N-word. You know what the N-word is, right?
Nuclear.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
I figured you'd want to clean that up. No, it's the N-word. That's a very nasty word, right? In a lot of ways. The N-word used in a nuclear sense, that's the worst thing that can happen. And I think they were very close. The hatred was great. And I said, we're going to talk about trade. We're going to do a lot of trade. Don't forget, Iran wants to make a deal with us badly for a lot of reasons. But when you look at India, they are calling, you know, Iran wants to trade with us, okay, if you can believe that. And I'm okay with it. I'm using trade to settle scores and to make peace. But I've told Iran, we make a deal, you're going to be very happy. But more than anything, I've told Iran very simply, because I heard somebody making my case last night on television. I didn't like it. Because they were saying, there's plenty of time. There's not plenty of time. There's not plenty of time.
You feel urgency.
Well, they're not going to have a nuclear weapon, and eventually they'll have a nuclear weapon, and then the discussion becomes a much different one. But in the case of India...
The craziest part is a lot of people don't know, the Iranian centrifuges, like the thing that makes the uranium enriched to a high level where you can make a nuclear weapon, came from Pakistan. The Pakistani nuclear scientist who helped Pakistan get the nuclear weapon, he was illegally selling his expertise all around the world, basically to all the nation who wanted nuclear weapons. He's like, I'll help you get it, just give me a bunch of money.
Yeah, India wants, you know, they're one of the highest taxed or tariff nations in the world. They make it almost impossible to do business. Do you know that they're willing to cut 100% of their tariffs for the United States?
Is that deal coming soon?
Yeah, that'll come soon. I'm in no rush. Look, everybody wants to make a deal with us.
So South Korea.
South Korea wants to make a deal with
India,
us, everybody. But
Japan.
I'm not going to make deals with everybody. I'm just going to set the limit. I'll make some deals. And then...
Okay, so I'm sure people are going to read into that. I wonder what that means, because not every country is going to get a deal. So we're going to have some countries that have deals that are considered like closest allies of the United States, then some countries who are going to just stay on the Liberation Day tariff, I'm guessing.
And I'm just, because you can't meet with that many people. I've got 150 countries that want to make deals. You know, you have a lot of countries.
The market was really happy with the China situation and the sit-down
they were.
With the Treasury Secretary.
If I didn't do that deal with China, I think China would have broken apart.
Not us, them.
We weren't going to break. We're not going to break.
Wow, we got a lot of people from Texas. Let's go. I'm from Houston.
They would have broken apart. You know, our country has a lot of spirit. And you know why? Because of November 5th. Because our country has spirit again.
The other foreign policy shift was this embrace.
Yeah. Beat-up said he just said that so other countries would want to make the deals faster. That could be. That would mean the countries would give up more concessions. Yeah, that's a good argument actually.
Syria. You met with the Syrian president, who has a shady past of being tied to Al-Qaeda and the al-Nusra Front in Syria, but you see promise there.
Well, before I talk about that, just one word.
Yeah.
Also Pakistan. Great conversations with Pakistan. We can't forget them. And because it does take two to tango. And with India, I felt very certain. And with Pakistan, I also talked about trade. Oh, they would love to trade. They would love to trade. They're brilliant people. They make incredible products. And we don't do much trading with them, and yet I have a good relationship with a lot of people that you wouldn't believe. But I stopped that war. That was going to be a nuclear war, I think, or close, very close. You were right there.
Okay. Let's not post your address in here. That's probably against YouTube guidelines.
Yeah.
And now everyone's happy. In fact, I told my people, call them up. Let's start trading immediately, because I'm a man of my word. Now when you get to Syria, so I did something with Syria because the future king, and you have a wonderful king right now.
He's calling him a king. He called the Syrian guy is calling himself, I think, president or interim president.
An older man. He's also a friend of mine, and he's 100% sharp. He's great, and he's got a great son, the crown prince, and he has actually many titles. He's
He's talking about the Saudi guy. I misunderstood. My bad. I'm following the chat too.
prime minister, he's crown prince, and he's doing a great job running it. But he called me and he spoke to me, and he said, could you do me a favor? Could you, and do the world a favor, could you take the sanctions off Syria? Because the only way they're going to have a chance, the sanctions are crippling, really biting. Well, that's what I did with Iran, and they came to a point where they were bust. Could you take the sanctions off? I hadn't thought about it much, and he said it in a way that was, he's got a great heart. He said, they can't make it with those sanctions. I said, let's give him a chance. I met the leader. I met the new leader, and handsome guy, by the way, young, handsome. And I said, you have quite a past. Got a tough past. But when you think about it, are you going to put a choir boy in that position? I don't think so. It's going to be a little bit tough. It's a tough part of the world.
So you're willing to give him a shot?
The word they say, it's a nasty neighborhood. It's a rough neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I thought he was really, I thought he was terrific. He was so thankful about the sanctions because he knew he's not going to be able to bust through.
What was crazy was that people put up like estimates of Bashar al-Assad's family, how much they're worth. They're worth $35 billion or something. And the Syrian economy is only $9 billion. So it was insane how much that family basically stole from the Syrian people. Let's see what happens. Like, this, as you guys just heard, this new guy, he's saying like he has changed, but he does have a very shady history of fighting against the United States. He was in a U.S. jail at one time too. And now he said he's changed man. Let's see what happens.
So maybe it'll be a turn.
So yeah, comical John asked if Syria is going to have an election. This guy said they will have an election just once the country is a little bit more stable. Right now, it's still like, I think some regions are still unstable. He's still like trying to maintain stability. So maybe in the future he'll probably have an election.
Turn there. We'll see.
I think he has a real chance. He's a strong guy. He's done some pretty tough things.
A lot of the coverage here was about your speech in Saudi Arabia and some of those things that you said about trusting these countries to make their own decisions, and we're not trying to make it a mirror image of ourselves. Big foreign policy thoughts.
We have our own problems.
Yeah. But a lot of the coverage back home was about this donation of the Qatar.
Ooh, all right, we're talking about this. So before we hear about this, what do you guys think? Is it right that Trump's getting the plane? Because initially I thought it's not a big deal. It's going to be the Air Force One. Who cares? It's like it's going to stay with the government. Like, what's the big deal? But then someone said it last time I was streaming that it's going to go to the Trump Foundation, which, again, is it just going to be like in a museum, or is Trump's going to use it personally? There are a lot of questions. What do you guys think? Is it a good decision for Trump to take such a big gift from a different country? I wouldn't trust the gift. But that's the thing, though. I don't think Qatar is going to put a spy, like any bug in the plane, because I'm sure our agencies will like make sure it's safe before they use it. So it's not about like, oh, they'll be able to spy on the president. I don't think that's what I was thinking initially, what Comical John said. Like if it's Air Force One, like it shouldn't be a problem, but someone's saying it's not going to be Air Force One. Yeah, I was misunderstood. I don't know the full story, so maybe it's not going to the Air Force One. I think it's going to the Defense Department or something. Yeah, so Jay Cutler says it's going to his museum. That means he's not going to be flying it. But then again, some people are saying, what if he just buys it? Which I guess I don't know. Let's see now what he says. Let's watch this clip.
Boeing jet, and I've heard you talk about it.
You know, until you bring this up now, I haven't heard about it for 3 days.
I know, but I mean, I'm just.
I mean, we can
back
talk about it again. You ready?
Briefly.
You ready?
No, I heard all the answers.
Well, no, but your audience has to hear the answers. Yeah.
They're giving it to the Defense Department.
To be very simple.
Yeah.
They're giving it to the United States Air Force / Defense Department of the United States. They're not giving it to me. I made a good deal. We need a plane for a couple of years before we get the other ones because Boeing is very late. Boeing is sadly...
Did you talk to the CEO while you were...
I did. I said, let's get, you know, in the meantime, I got them 160 planes to build. I said, how about the two that you're supposed to build for our country? Now, they are different. They're extremely complex, and I'm not going to go into it, but they're not like a normal plane. You know, it's not like building a 747 normal.
I mean, we could put people on the moon before
but let me tell you,
the Boeing Air Force One is
People
done.
knew I was angry at Boeing. A lot of people know. These people know. They're very smart down here. And they suggested if we can do anything at all to help. Because we have 40-year-old planes right now. You know, our Air Force One is actually two planes. It's 747s.
I don't think people know that. 40 years. It's 4...
I did not know it was 40 years old. Like, that's actually crazy. I don't know personally if I would feel safe in a 40-year plane, but which, again, I might be flying in a 40-year-old plane, but I just don't know. I didn't know our Air Force was that old.
Decades old, the current Air Force One.
They're 40 years old. They're more than that. I think they're 42 now. I've been saying 40 for 2 years. They're 42. We shouldn't have a 42-year-old plane. And you know what? There's nothing unsafe about it. In many cases, they're just as safe or more safe. They're heavier. You know, they throw out a lot more for the environmentalists out there to turn them. They throw out a little more than a modern engine would throw out. But they're, you know, they're good, but they're 42 years old. And when we landed, I saw the other day, when we landed, I was parked right next, we parked right next to the 747 of Qatar. And we parked next to us another 747, 2 or 3 of them, which the Arab world has. And when you look at a new 747 and you look at a plane that's 42 years old, not even the same plane, the other ones are bigger and sleeker and sharper, and it doesn't look right. We have a problem with Boeing. Now, again, it's a very complex plane. It's a much different plane than a normal plane would be. Okay. And they're doing a great job. They're coming back, and they're coming back strong. But I'm angry about them for the 2 planes. They should be able to knock them off in no time, and it's, you know, they're not able to do that. And he said, great gentleman, Tamim, he said, I would like to help if you want. I said, how can you help? Well, we happen to have a plane. And I said, well, what do you want to do? He said, you have been, and he doesn't.
Yep, if you haven't hit the like button, like Rico said, be sure to hit it. Let me update our goal. We're at 700. Let's try to get to 1,000.
Doesn't mean me, although I have been good. He means our country has defended them, has done great things for them. They might not be there.
Base.
Look, right next to Iran, and he is right next to. He's not like an hour away. Like I flew an hour to one, I flew an hour to here. But that one you don't have to fly. All you have to do is walk right across the border if you want to. I mean, it's literally touching, right? Right next to her. And he said,
wait, what country is he talking about?
To one, I flew an hour to. Well, we happen to have a plane. And I said, well, what do you want to do? He said, you have been, and he doesn't mean me, although I have been good. He means our country has defended them, has done great things for them. They might not be there.
Base.
Look, right next.
Oh, yeah, we have the biggest base. So a lot of people who say, like, Qatar is not trustworthy, we have the biggest Middle Eastern base in Qatar. Like, I think almost 10,000 U.S. soldiers are there. So definitely an ally. I know a lot of people have questions about Qatar, but that's their foreign policy. They just want to be playing every side because they're a small country. So what they do is, like, they have a Taliban base, I think, in Qatar. They have, of course, the Iranian connection, Hamas base. But then again, all of this is like with U.S. permission. I'm pretty sure if U.S. says, hey, you cannot house Hamas officials in Qatar, they'll kick them out. But U.S. realizes like the importance of dialogue. You know, if we ever want to talk to someone or like, I guess, get a message across, all these people are in Qatar. So it's definitely like they have all these people, not like in spite of U.S. unhappiness. U.S. definitely approves having all these people.
Next to Iran, and he is right next to. He's not like an hour away. Like I flew an hour to one, I flew an hour to here, but that one you don't have to fly. All you have to do is walk right across the border if you want to. I mean, it's literally touching, right? Right next to. And he said, your country has been very good to us. I would love to do something to help with this situation you have with Air Force One. I said, that's nice. What do you suggest? And he suggested this. And I said, you know what? That's very nice. That's very nice. I appreciate it. What would be the price? He said, there is no price. I said, that's nice. Now, this plane's not for me. This goes to the United States Air Force for whoever is president. And at some point, it'll be like Ronald Reagan. It'll be decommissioned. You know, it's 11 years old.
So it stays until it's decommissioned.
Yeah, it'll be decommissioned because they...
Okay, I didn't know that either. What the hell? So it's going to stay with the DOD until we stop flying the plane. So that could be however long.
Well, plus they'll have the other two planes by that time, and there'll be brand new planes, etc. But I just want to say, it was a radical left story that a lot of people, including you...
And I asked the Prime Minister about it specifically. And he said, you know, he didn't understand the reaction back home. And, you know, he made that clear.
I think he was insulted, actually.
No, so Comical Joan, I think it means like it will go to his museum after it's decommissioned, not when, like nothing to do with Trump and whenever he goes like out of office.
He made a...
I think Qatar is just donating one. Two are going to come from Boeing whenever it's ready. So we have two Air Force One, like the new Boeing, like on order with Boeing. Whenever that's ready, they will come into DOD.
Gift to help somebody that has helped them. It was so nice as a gesture. And you know, the people here...
Well, Jay, according to what he just said, it's not gonna go to Trump Museum when he leaves office. It's gonna go to Trump Museum when we stop using the plane, basically, whenever DOD stop using the plane. So whenever DOD gets the new planes from Boeing, I'm guessing that's when they'll stop using it.
To show you how it's crazy, they'd like me to pay $1 billion. I'd rather pay $1 billion and get 10 fighter jets instead of giving $1 billion when it's not necessary.
Putin doesn't go to Turkey.
Yeah.
You thought about going, if he was going.
Well, I had a problem. I mean, I consider the Middle East very important. And I had a problem because Thursday I was going to be UAE, okay? And which is where I am now. We're going to be leaving in a few hours and have another couple of stops. It's a pretty grueling schedule. A lot of people said, how the hell do you do it?
By the way, how the hell do you do it?
I don't know. I think it's genetics. It's good genetics. I had a father who was very strong, and I had a mother who was very strong. They lived to ripe old ages, and they were great people. And it's meeting after meeting. And not only that, it's speech after speech. It's not like big ones. Like last night, if you look, he got up and made a beautiful speech. Mohammed, he got up and made a beautiful speech. I wasn't told I even had a speech to make. So I had to make a speech off the cuff. Do you think Biden could do that? I don't think so. Actually, it was a pretty good speech. So I looked at it. It was pretty good. I didn't know I was doing it. So, but, you know, it's meeting after meeting with the highest level people. These are great people. They love us again. They were not feeling love at all. They were going to China. They're not going to China anymore.
You were going to go to Turkey. Putin doesn't show. Zelensky shows.
No, I was never scheduled to go.
No, you weren't scheduled, but you were talking about maybe you would go if it all came together.
But I tell you what,
so what do you think?
I would not have wanted to disappoint UAE because that was my stop. Deal. And if I went to Turkey, I couldn't go here, and it would have been. It would have been very hard for me to say I'm not doing it.
On the substance, what do you think's going through Putin's mind? You said get to the table. You said stop bombing. He hasn't stopped bombing. He's not at the table. And what do you think is happening?
Well, he is at the table, and he wanted this meeting. And I always felt there can't be a meeting without me. because I don't think a deal is going to get through. There's a lot of hatred on both sides. I have a very good relationship with Putin. I think we'll make a deal. We have to get together, and I think we'll probably schedule it because I'm tired of having other people go and meet and everything else. And with that being said, I think Steve Witkoff has done an incredible job. But it's a very tough job, and it's a job that, because of position, that I think I'm the only one that's going to be able to do that one. And I think we'll do it fast, too. I think Putin is tired of this whole thing. He's not looking good, and he wants to look good. Don't forget, this was supposed to end in 1 week. And if he didn't get stuck...
Not even 1 week. Putin said he would be in Kyiv in 72 hours, 3 days. Now, we're more than three years in, and Putin is losing territory. Now, what he controlled back in 2022, he has less than that now.
Stuck in the mud with his army tanks all over the place. They would have been in Kiev in about 5 hours. And who gave the javelins? Do you remember who gave the javelins? Was it Barack Hussein Obama? No, it was Donald Trump gave the javelins.
Do you think your perception of it has changed? Is Putin now the obstacle to peace in your mind?
Look, I had a real rough session with Zelensky because I didn't like what he said. And he was not making it easy. And I always said he doesn't have the cards. And he doesn't have the cards. And, I'm being honest. He doesn't have the cards. You're dealing with a massive army, and you're dealing with somebody that's brave, that had great equipment.
But I haven't seen you get personal. On Truth Social, you said, Vladimir, stop. He hasn't stopped. And you had once said that maybe you need to look at other things like sanctions or banking.
Okay, so
because maybe they need to be pressured in a different way.
And I'll be doing that if
do you think that it's
I don't want to see 5,000.
Was that gold in the background? Damn.
People,
Some dude. I don't think U.S. is fighting a proxy war. U.S. is just... Russia is the one who invaded a country.
Outside of the money, which is a big deal, but the money is the money. The money we can make up. I can make up the money on one trip like this, okay? I mean, think of it.
Oh, yeah, we just crossed 800 likes. Let me update that. If you haven't hit the like button, be sure to do that. We're trying to get to 1,000 likes.
This trip, I made 12 times the money that we're talking about. I made that money in a few days. I've always been good with money.
It's not about the money. It's about pressuring Putin, right? I mean,
no, but I've always been good with money. I make money. I made in 4 days, I made 12 times what we spent in Ukraine. So the money is the money. What bothered me, I hated to see the way it was, excuse me, pissed away.
Yeah, like Comical John said, if we truly wanted to make this into a proxy fight, we would not be giving Ukraine like all the old weapons we have.
I hated to see that checks were sent for $60 billion. Every time Zelensky, I think he's the greatest salesman in the world, far better than me. Zelensky,
Wait, did he actually say $60 billion?
It was, excuse me, pissed away. I hated to see that checks were sent for $60 billion.
I think that might be the first time he said 60 billion. So far, he was just saying 300 billion.
Every time Zelensky, I think he's the greatest salesman in the world, far better than me. Zelensky, he comes to Washington, he walks out with 100 billion every time he came, 100 billion, 100 billion. Now his abilities were shrinking because the last time I only got 60 billion. But Congress is very upset about it. They're saying, where is all this money going?
And I'm focused on
And we
Putin.
sent checks. We don't only send we sent just checks. We sent just cash. Where is it? The Europeans have been very badly hurt by this. They spent a lot of money also. They spent 100 billion. We spent 350. It shouldn't be that. It should have been the other way around. But
are you going to put the
they have
screws
not
to
been
Putin?
treated.
Okay, so I just started a poll. I just want to see where you guys are standing, where you guys stand. Who do you think started this war, Russia or Ukraine?
Wait, they have not been treated right by anybody. This is...
Yeah, so if you're in the chat, be sure to vote. We'll see the results in like 2-3 minutes. Like, let's just give everyone a chance.
The war that they're, spending a lot of money on. We've been treated worse than them because we had a very stupid person as a president. And if I can solve that problem, and it's a bad problem because I will tell you, Putin, it was the apple of his eye. He never would have done it if I were president. Never, ever would have done it. 100%. I think you even, most people, actually even Democrats say that it wouldn't have happened. But we inherited a mess, okay? I think it's going to get solved. But you know that Putin wanted the whole thing. He didn't want a piece. He didn't want a chunk. He wanted the whole thing. Somebody said, well, what do we get out of it in terms of, let's say, Ukraine?
Right.
You know what they get out of it? A large portion of the country.
It's just, Senator Lindsey Graham has 73 co-sponsors on this bill to sanction.
73 co-sponsors is a pretty bipartisan support for a bill in Senate. Like, clearly, Russia does not have fans in the U.S.
Russian oil and anybody who buys Russian oil.
But that's the thing, though. U.S. was not talking. Like, you could pick out one or two clips here, but we have to look at, like, the whole story, okay? So you look at the polls if Ukrainians want to join NATO or not. If you look at it in 2013, Ukrainians did not want to join NATO. They just wanted to join EU. But the president who was in charge was a pro-Russian president. He canceled some bill that was supposed to get Ukraine closer to EU. And that's when we saw that revolution, the Euromaidan revolution. And that's when the president was overthrown by the people. And he ran to Russia. Clearly, he was pro-Russian. That's when Russia saw that they were losing influence in Ukraine, and they invaded Crimea and illegally took it over. That's when Ukraine realized that Russia is going to take over the whole thing if Ukraine doesn't just stay as a Russian puppet. That's when the support for NATO started growing in Ukraine. If you look at 2013, before Russia took over Crimea, Ukrainians did not want to join NATO. They just wanted EU. They wanted an economic partnership with EU because Russia doesn't have a good economy. Only reason Russia is like a respectable state is because they have so much oil. They don't know how to run an economic, they don't have a good economic model. And if it wasn't for oil, they would be like a Nigeria, basically. There's a quote where Russia is just Nigeria with oil. But so the only reason Ukrainians wanted to join NATO is because Russia invaded Crimea, and they knew Russia is going to invade Ukraine at some point. Like Trump just said, Ukraine is apple of Putin's eye. He wants to rebuild the Soviet empire. And there you go. In 2022, he launched a full-scale invasion.
Well, he's making the pitch for the bill saying, why should China get the...
Yeah, the 300 billion figure that Trump kept saying was not accurate at all.
Benefit of cheap oil from Russia as Putin continues the war. At some point, there has to be leverage on Putin. And I assume that you've talked about that.
Nobody uses leverage better than me. Look what I did to Iran. Look
so
what
it's changing.
I mean, then again, if it's a NATO membership, okay, let's just say Russia invaded because Ukraine wanted to join NATO. Trump has come out and publicly said Ukraine is not going to be part of NATO ever. Why doesn't Russia just pull back its troops? Clearly, it's not just NATO.
It's not changing. I always had that. I will use that if I have to. I'd rather not use that. By the way, that's a big deal. I just put it on Venezuela. It's secondary sanctions, it's called.
But then again, it doesn't matter what Ukrainians want, right? Trump said publicly, like, they don't, because if you look at Putin, he has like 2,000 excuses. First, he said he's protecting the Russian people who want to be close to Russia. But then what does he do? He goes into Ukraine and he bombs all the houses. He bombs all the houses in the eastern Ukraine. That's where mostly the Russian-speaking population is. So he's trying to protect them by destroying their homeland.
And I just did it with Venezuela.
And you could do it with Iran, too.
I just did it with Iran. It's basically, if you buy oil from Iran, you can't do business with the United States. And you see the ships just leaving that port. You know, in Venezuela, it was amazing.
So why not do it with Russia?
You had to see the... Well, I will. If I do, honestly, I will. If we're not going to make a deal, we're going to see whether or not this is Turkey time. You know, this is now we're talking Turkey, and we'll see what happens. That would be crushing for Russia because they're having a hard time now with the economy. Oil prices are low. You know,
it would change the dynamic.
Okay, so but he's incompetent. He doesn't want to see the war. Because, you know, everything he said was wrong. The way he talked about Putin, the way he said the threats, I mean, it's just wrong. But here's what was really wrong. He let oil go from $65 to $100 a barrel. Putin was making a fortune. Now I have oil down, so nobody's making a fortune anymore. And it's going to go down further. because I'm baby drill, you know. He closed up everything, and then he opened it. You know what people don't realize? They said, oh, no, he closed it up, and it drove oil through the roof. And then he said, go back to Trump, go back to Trump. In other words, go back to what I was doing. And he didn't, but they did to a large extent. He didn't go all the way. And I would have been double that by that time. But he didn't go all the way. And what happened, he forced the prices up, the oil prices up. And that Putin made a fortune during that period of time.
Yeah. Did you see this thing with the former FBI director, James Comey?
I did. I just saw it on the news.
You know, he puts up this post showing 8647 in the sand, saying cool shell formation on a beach walk. Your director of national intelligence was asked about it last night, and she said this.
I mean, I know we're moving on, but the NATO stuff is true. Like, countries were not spending money. They were just relying on U.S., and they need to spend more. It's like that joke. What's that joke where, like, NATO walks into the bar, and the bartender asks, like, who's paying? Everyone just points at U.S. It's like, I know we're not paying these countries, but it's like this NATO alliance, all the countries was like, oh, we don't need to invest in our defense. We can just rely on U.S. spending.
Whatever James Comey intent, he and people like him need to be held to account according to the law, which is something that he claims to have given his life for and stands by the rule of law. Fantastic. The rule of law says people like him who issue direct threats against the President of the United States, essentially issuing a call to assassinate him, must be held accountable under the law.
Do you believe Comey should be in jail?
I do.
Do you?
So I saw that this morning. You know, there's a big time gap. And he knew exactly what that meant. A child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant assassination. And it says it loud and clear. Now, he wasn't very competent, but he was competent enough to know what that meant. And he did it for a reason, and he was hit so hard. Because people like me, they like what's happening with our country. Our country's become respected again, and all this. And he's calling for the assassination of the president.
Obviously, he apologized and said he wasn't calling for violence. But
look, he's a very bad.
What do you want to see happen? What do you want to see happen?
I don't want to take a position on it because that's going to be up to Pam and all of the great people. I have Cash, I have Pam, I have great people. And I'm going to let them, because if I tell you something, they'll say, oh, I'm not going to get involved. But I will say this. I think it's a terrible thing. And when you add his history to that, if he had a clean history, he doesn't. He's a dirty cop. He's a dirty cop. And if he had a clean history, I could understand if there was a leniency. But I'm going to let them make that decision. But he knew exactly what it said.
It's a dangerous time. I see security around here. It's very tight. You're in the Middle East. You've had 2 assassination attempts. One, obviously, where you got hit by that bullet in Butler. There's a lot of frustration that we still don't know about that shooter in Butler. And we don't know about his communications. We get stonewalled all the time asking questions about it. Is there frustration on your part? Will we get transparency? Will we know the bottom line story?
It's very interesting because we have great people. I think Pam is incredible. I think Cash is incredible. And they're doing a great job. They're being recognized as doing a great job. I was given an explanation early on, you know, sort of a little bit pre-them. And I thought it was strange. You know, the one guy had 18 cell phones. Okay. I have a lot of cell phones, but I have like 2. You know.
Wait, which guy had 18 cell phones? Was that like the Mar-a-Lago guy, or was that the Pennsylvania guy?
I call that a lot. And I think I probably make more calls than him. It's like that's all I do. And I had to, why does somebody have 18? Another one, the first one from Butler, he had 3 apps, very unusual apps, and 2 of them were foreign apps. And then he ends up with a white shoe lawyer, meaning a super lawyer from Pittsburgh, you know, the big city. And they live outside of Butler in a little place. Where did they get this lawyer that would represent IBM and would represent ExxonMobil?
But you're the president. Can't you find out?
No, I know. I'm relying on my people to tell me what it is. You know, we have deep-seated craziness in this country, and I'm relying on my people. And so far, they and they're good. But so far, and in this case, it's Secret Service, they tell me it's fine. But it's a little hard to believe, to be honest with you, okay? It's a little bit hard to believe as I get that throbbing feeling.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, what Maddox said is like, remember that Tucker Carlson Putin interview where he asked him, why'd you invade Ukraine? He's like, let's go back to 1800s. Ukraine was part of Russia.
I get a little throbbing feeling.
Well, if you find out, we'd love to know. We continue to ask.
I know. No, I
and a lot of
understand
people ask us.
It's a little bit strange. We have incredible people in there now, so can't blame
Well,
that.
you've been very generous with your time. I'll just wrap it up with this. This is, in the minds of Democrats, Republicans, a very successful trip, big picture. Because it's this way, do you want to do more foreign policy trips? Do you want to go talk to China's Xi Jinping? I mean, you're a force of personality as far as getting things done on a business front. Do you think that that's the model that you're going to have going forward?
Yeah. So, well, it's a very hard model. It's a very taxing model, you know, when you do this. So when you say do what, is it fun?
Yeah.
Now, I did say I was standing next to all three of them over the last few days, and, you know, with tremendous fanfare and everyone going crazy and everything else. It's at a level that nobody's ever seen before, honestly. Nobody's ever. I'm getting calls back in the United States. We've never seen anything like this. It's so good for our country, so I'll do it again. And I'll do it, and, yeah, I would certainly China, where it's important. It's important in a different way. This was very important to keep in our fold. You know, it's just, they're in our fold. They are back loving the United States again. That was a full embrace, and nobody's ever seen anything like it. I mean, seriously, I asked, have you ever done this before? Last night, 2 nights ago. I said, have you ever done anything for No. Would you? No. Not even close. You know, with the hundreds of camels and the horses and this.
Which is crazy. I think the cops have. So this is so interesting about Dubai's, like not foreign policy. I don't know what to say, because everyone thinks Dubai has like all the cops drive insane cars, but like that's not true. Only like 5 cops drive insane cars, but everyone just talks about it. Like, because it's such a unique story, it just goes viral on social media every time. I think same either in Qatar or in Dubai, where some cops now have cyber trucks and they just look like very unique. They stand out. Dubai is like very good at marketing.
It was beautiful. I mean, all three. If you said which was the best, I couldn't tell you, and they were different. They were all at the top level. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. It was an honor. But that really, to me, it showed love. It showed, you know, there's a love. It's almost like they were shut out for a long time, just shut out and treated horribly, and they shouldn't have been. And all of a sudden, they were allowed back in, and they give you an embrace that's 20 times what it perhaps should be. I mean, it was just a beautiful thing to see. So we're in great shape. The Middle East is great. Now we have one problem in the Middle East, Iran, and I'll get that problem solved. It's going to get solved one way or the other.
Hamas and Israel, that's eventually going to get solved.
That's a big problem. I think Iran is right now the big problem. That's also a problem. Hamas is big, and we want to take care of the people. Look, people are starving. You know, you see what's going on right now. People are starving. One of the things that one of the 3 great leaders that I saw 2 nights ago said to me, please help the people, the Palestinians. I said, other than the obvious, what do you mean by that? He said, they're starving.
So this is crazy. This is where like the social media clips, you can't rely on the clips to get information, because it's like whichever side they're supporting, they'll just clip up this part. Because I saw a lot of like pro-Palestinian accounts just clip up like this part and say Trump's pro-Palestinian, and then pro-Israeli accounts, they'll clip up the part in the beginning of the video, beginning of the interview, where he was saying like he understands the position Netanyahu is in. It's like, you know, it's a tough position and stuff. So it's like, that's crazy. Like he said both things, but like with the clips, you would think he was just like one-sided.
And he meant it with his heart. They're starving. So I've already started working on that. It's a deep problem, but we'll get it solved. And a very immediate and a very big problem is, you know, I'm so proud of what we were able to do with India and with Pakistan. Well, it's a potential problem like that we have here. I'll get it solved, and one way or the other I'll get it solved. It's either going to be done nicely or it's going to be done violently. And I 99.9% want to do it nicely if we can.
Well, Mr. President, we appreciate the time. Safe travels home. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I think it's been almost 1 hour, so we'll probably stop it there for today. But hopefully we'll start streaming at 4 p.m. Eastern every single day. So if you guys enjoyed the stream, definitely turn on the notification for just the streams. I don't know if YouTube has that ability, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.